Hello and welcome to ZomCast 27. I'm Mehdi, the host of this podcast, and today we will be talking about a very important event that we had in the previous week. On February 24, 2021, which means 2 days ago, 2 days ago, finally Google released Jetpack Compose to beta. This means that you can now be sure that it is stable for production and you can start using it in your production applications. This new UI toolkit enables you to declaratively define your UI for Android applications, and it makes your life as a developer much easier. Why? Because it is using Kotlin language, which is very idiomatic and modern language, and also it releases you from the pain of using XML based layouts, and you don't need to use XML layouts anymore. You define everything in code. So what happened in that event? Let's take a look at what was released and some of the items that were mentioned as part of this UI toolkit. In fact, this is a complete UI toolkit that you can use to create any type of UI for your Android applications, and keep in mind that it is also evolving and it is under active development, and it is still growing, but the foundation has been built and it is pretty stable. One of the things that I personally liked a lot about Jetpack Compose beta version is its new animation API. If you are familiar with Android animation APIs, it historically had some animation APIs, different animation APIs like view animations, like transitions, like shared animations, window animations, and so on and so forth, which all suited the view-based UI. But now we are using a different type of animation, and a completely new animation system has been designed for Jetpack Compose. And the good news is that it is pretty easy compared to the old animation APIs that we were used to using in the old view-based system. So now I'm gonna head over to the browser, to the blog of Google, the blog post about Jetpack Compose beta release, to have a glimpse on different items and what has been announced. Alright, I have my browser here. I'm gonna go full screen. And here you can see today we are launching the beta release of Jetpack Compose, our new UI toolkit designed to make it faster and easier to build native apps across all Android platforms. Compose offers modern declarative Kotlin APIs, helping you build beautiful responsive apps with way less code. Yeah, this is one of the key factors. You write practically much less code when you are creating Compose UIs compared to the old way of creating UIs and old toolkits. And with this beta release, Compose is API complete, beautiful, and has all the features you need to build production-ready apps. Beta also means API stable, so we won't change or remove APIs. Now is a great time to start learning Compose and begin planning for how you will use it in an upcoming project or feature once it reaches version 1 later this year. So later this year we will reach version 1 or the first stable release of this UI toolkit. So now let's take a look at what we have in this version, in this beta version of Compose. Our team has been developing Compose in the open with feedback and participation from the community. Look, this toolkit has been under development probably for more than 2 years now, and it has gone through a lot of changes. But now you can be sure that it is API complete and the basics will not change anymore. Coroutine support. Coroutines is something specific to Kotlin, and since Compose is built on Kotlin language, it is also fully supporting coroutines, and you can use all the features and benefits of coroutines in a Compose UI. Accessibility support for TalkBack. So it has also accessibility support, which is great. A UI toolkit that has accessibility implemented since version 1 and even before that in beta release. Easy to use animations with completely new API since alpha. This is great. So a completely new API has been created for animations, and this has been used since the alpha versions. So now you can make sure and you can comfortably use these animations in your applications. And as I said, these animations are much easier to learn and use than the previous and classic ways of animation creation for Android views. Interoperability. We have interoperability with views. This means that you can use your classic views, your old views inside Compose UI. So when you are going to change your application structure to make use of Compose UI, you can easily do that by integrating Compose into your existing code base. You don't have to write everything from scratch. You can write the new parts of your application with Compose and then integrate them. For example, you can embed some classic Android view inside a composable, which is a unit of UI in Jetpack Compose. And on the other hand, you can also use a composable UI, a UI that has been created with composables and Jetpack Compose inside views, inside your classic views. So don't worry about upgrading your old code bases to Jetpack Compose in order to leverage this new UI toolkit at all. And another great thing about Jetpack Compose is that it has built-in support for material UI components since the beginning. So the Android team has been working on making this a reality from the early beginning of creating Jetpack Compose by creating a specific artifact for Jetpack Compose that contains all the material components that you will use in your Android applications, or most of them, Lazy lists. So in Android, in classic Android development, we were used to creating recycler views and list views in order to show a list of items and list some data, a structured list of data on the device. But now we have lazy lists, which is Jetpack Compose's way of creating recycler views. Constraint layout. We have a different take of constraint layout in Jetpack Compose. It is called constraint layout because it is using constraints, but it doesn't mean that it is exactly doing the same type of definition that we were used to in old Android. In classic Android, let's not call it old. In classic Android views, like defining constraints in XML and connecting the dots, connecting the right of some view, the right of a view to its parent, and the left side of its a view to the right side of a view, and things like that. And modifiers. Modifiers are an excellent way of creating a new behavior, changing the appearance and modifying the behavior and appearance of composables and compose based UIs. This is amazing. This is something that I can say something really innovative that I really love about Jetpack Compose. And also testing has been part of this toolkit for a long time, and it has been integrated so that you can easily use the testing features of Jetpack Compose to test your code and roll them out to production. Theming and graphics, we have good support for theming and graphics aligned with the material design components, as I said, and you can easily theme your applications in a way easier way than we were used to using XML files. Now you can easily define your themes using Kotlin code declaratively, and then you can easily switch between different themes with easy support for dark and light mode. And input and gestures, events and handling input are very important in every UI toolkit, whether it is Android or iOS or whatever mobile platform. And Jetpack Compose, this new UI toolkit, has very good support for input and gestures from this release on. Text and editable text, you can work with text UIs, create editable texts, and get user input in the form of text, string, and whatever. And Jetpack Compose provides you with the options that you will need to handle text and text input. And window management, Jetpack Compose's take on managing windows. Honestly, I'm not much familiar with this concept. This is pretty new to me. Probably was added recently to Jetpack Compose, but it's also an interesting topic. I think one of the recent Android developers backstage podcasts also was about this window manager. Probably some new API that has been added. And some of the features for the beta release, we've been focused on ensuring API completeness, that all foundational APIs are placed for us to continue to build upon for 1 and beyond. We'll work on stabilizing these APIs up to our 1 release with particular focus on app performance and accessibility. So, as you can read here, we can expect better performance in the upcoming versions of Jetpack Compose, especially in the preview. Currently, preview is a little bit sluggish and a little bit slow, at least on mediocre operating systems and mediocre hardware, but hopefully this will be improved soon. And some other things, you can see animation preview. This is pretty cool. You will have animation preview when you are creating animations. You can see them in the preview pane. And also compose layout. In the layout inspector, this option has recently been added to Android Studio. Allows you to inspect your compose based UIs just like you did for your classic views. Interactive preview, which allows you to interactively preview your UIs, the UIs that need interaction, like the buttons, like the like other views that you add click options to them. You can also you can even make an image clickable in Compose. You can make every UI clickable most of the time, in fact, if you want to. And deploy preview, you can preview just part, you can deploy or install just part of a UI, by which I mean you can have first several previews of your Compose code in Android Studio, and for every preview you have the option to install it separately to Android Studio. This is pretty handy because it allows you to see how it works on the real device, in addition to just seeing it previewed in Android Studio. Alright, it was great news. something that I personally was waiting for a long time. And also, another good thing about Jetpack Compose is that it's foundationally working with other components of Android architecture like navigation, view model, live data, paging, and health, which allows you to architect your apps in a modern and advanced ways that are feature proof and future proof, and allows you to create better engineering in your apps. All right, you can continue reading this. There are some pretty good clips, nice cool clips that introduce Jetpack Compose and its features. In a nutshell, I just showed you some of the basics and some of the important topics that I liked in the beta version. But there are some other things to talk about the 24th of February, because in addition to Jetpack Compose, also Android, the preview version of Android was released. Next version of Android 12 was released. And it is, developer preview. You can head over to Android developer website, developer.android.com, to fetch that and start using it and testing it for yourself. And actually, let's go to the developer homepage, developer.android.com, to show you some of the updates to the Android platform, to Android ecosystem. Android, in addition to Android developer preview, we also had a beautiful announcement, a big announcement for Android development resources for educators. If you are a teacher or someone that teaches Android, educates Android's a group of people, you can use the development resources that has been provided by the Android team, so that you can officially have a reference curriculum to match the necessities that you will need to teach your students. And since Google is promoting and has been promoting Kotlin for a long time now, you can expect that most of these references and most of these development educator resources are Kotlin based. You can open this article, Android Development Resources for Educators, and you will find different types of resources like slides and like the curriculum, and also nice education material that you can yourself learn from if you are an educator, or if there's any student that wants to learn Android development, that will be useful for them as well. All right. What else do we have to talk about? Okay, another update from the Android ecosystem was the Developer Challenge. A new series of developer challenges with good prizes has been announced by the Android team that you can start seeing and start working on, that you can find on the developer's website. If I don't find it here, actually, on this website, yeah, I find it. Android Dev Challenge Liftoff with Jetpack Compose. This is the blog post on Android Dev Challenge that is based on Jetpack Compose. There are some challenges for creating UIs with the conditions that have been mentioned here, and the prize, actually, this challenge is weekly as far as I can see, and every week you can win some prizes from this challenge. Our first challenge kicks off with a prize that makes for the perfect sidekick as you're flying through Compose. a limited edition trophy of our Jetpack Compose superhero made of Lego bricks. The first 500 people to successfully complete this challenge and submit their entry can add this trophy to their collection of Android figurines, showing off how you're a winner for the first week's Android Div Challenge. Nice. And also help make Jetpack Compose better. Community is at the heart of Jetpack Compose, and your feedback helps us build a better product. File issues with Jetpack Compose on the official issue tracker and sign up to be part of Jetpack Compose research studies. I'm not sure if this is part of the challenge, helping make Jetpack Compose better and filing bug issues about that, but the previous one that you can find the details of is actually the challenge that you can win prizes for. Okay, now away from Jetpack Compose, we had enough talk about Jetpack Compose. By the way, if you want to learn more about Jetpack Compose, I have an upcoming course that is coming really soon that you can find over the internet by searching my name. But for now, let's head over to other news of the week. Kali Linux 2021.1 released. So you can now, those hackers and those people that love networking and hacking and security, now you can get the latest version of Kali Linux 21.1. And Google funds Linux kernel developers to work exclusively on security. So in order to even improve further the Linux kernel in terms of security, Google is now funding the team that is working on kernel team on Linux kernel to improve it in terms of security and make it more secure. Okay. And the new podcast of Kubernetes podcast 139, is now available. You can listen to it. Is called Podcast from Google, episode 139, GKE Autopilot with Yoshi Kiriari. All right. I think that's basically the news of the week, what we had to talk about. And this week we didn't have tutorial on Python. I will do it in the next week because today was an important day because I wanted to talk about Jetpack Compose specifically. I'm sure I didn't cover much, but hopefully I gave you an idea of what Jetpack Compose is all about and what it's bringing to developers and to Android developers and UI designers in the Android ecosystem. Okay. Actually, if I have time, in the end of this podcast, I'm gonna show a little bit of Android Studio and a little glimpse of Jetpack Compose development and how it works. And hopefully that will give you a glimpse of how fun it could be to create Android UI with Jetpack Compose. But before that, let's announce the article of the week. The article of the week is generating HTTP API clients using Visual Studio Connected Services from the ASP.NET blog. And you can find this article on devblogs.microsoft.com, and you can find it on Google by searching for generating HTTP API clients using Visual Studio Connected Services. Okay. Now I'm gonna switch over to Android Studio and hopefully show you how Jetpack Compose works. I have messed up with the shortcut to my Android Studio, so I'm gonna pause the video here, and after fixing it, I'll resume the video. Alright, Android Studio is running. Now I'm gonna go ahead and create a simple Compose UI project and show you how it works. Yeah, new project. This is, by the way, the latest canary version of Android Studio. And in order to use Compose, until recently you had to use Jetpack Compose, you had to use Android Studio Preview, and I assume that it is still the same. And probably you need to at least use Android Studio Beta Preview to use Compose. Okay, empty Compose activity I selected, and then I name it because this is ZomCast Compose. I name my project ZomCast Compose, and let's call it ninja.code zombie, my package name, and then save location. There we go, in my src directory. Come on. Language is Kotlin, and minimum SDK is at least 21. You cannot have less than 21 as API level for your Compose application. I press finish and wait for the project to be created. Alright, our application has been created by Android Studio. Let's first take a look at the different parts of Jetpack Compose UI. You see, we have a section called set content, and it is inside the onCreate method that we all Android developers know and love. Inside onCreate, we usually inflate our UI, we load our XML layouts and use them as the UI of our activity or our page or fragment. But with Jetpack Compose, inside the onCreate method, we have a function called setContent, and setContent contains the UI that will be generated with Jetpack Compose. You see ZomCast Compose theme, a theme named after my application that gives some theming attributes to the appearance of my application. And inside that theme, we have a surface that contains the background color from the theme. And inside the surface, we have another composable, we have another function that creates some UI. And let's now take a look at these functions. Every Kotlin function that has been annotated with the @composable annotation is called a composable. A composable usually generates a part of your UI. For example, this composable creates creates a part of the UI that just displays a text, and when we pass a name to it, it greets that name by saying hello, that name. For example, if I pass in Mehdi, it will say hello Mehdi. If I send Jane, it will say hello Jane. And the other thing about composables is that you can preview them. The way we preview composables while we are designing them is putting them inside another composable that is in turn annotated with @preview annotation. @preview allows a composable to be previewable in Android Studio. If we build this application, it will show us the preview of this composable. Sometimes in the first time when you create a project, it doesn't show you the preview, and we can expect that from an unstable version of Android Studio that is built weekly. This is a canary version of Android Studio, and we can expect some bugs like that. Okay, while this is being built, Let's create our own version of composable. Look, I create a composable to show a simple UI for me. Composable, and this is a Kotlin function. I call it my box. This will create a box, and then I use a built-in composable from the Jetpack Compose library called box, and in that box I use a modifier to set its size. To give it a maximum size, I say modifier dot fill max size, and then you can put other UI components inside your box, because basically it is box. It is a container for another UI. I need to import modifier, and I need to import box, and also import fill max size. And after the box, I'm gonna create a button. The button is available from the material library, from the material components library of Jetpack Compose toolkit. So I import it. It has several attributes, several parameters. One of them is onClick, that decides what to do when the button is clicked. And it is mandatory, which means it is not optional, and you have to pass in a lambda for it. And then inside the button, we can have another UI that basically and often is a piece of text that displays the label for that button. For example, I use the text composable from the material library and say click. Inside the box, I'm gonna use a picture. To use a picture, I use the image composable from the material library again. Actually, it's not from the material, it's Compose UI graphics package. And then there are several ways to use it. I choose the first one, which receives a bitmap, image, resource. There we go. You see that the preview is appearing for the default code that was added by Android Studio. Image, resource. Let's use the second form, which I'm more familiar with. Painter equals painter resource. And for that, I will need to specify the path to the resource of that image. So let's import an image that I have in my pictures directory to Android Studio. I have this picture, I copy it back to Android Studio and paste it in the resources drawable, and call my image r.drawable.myImage, and it also needs a content description as the second parameter, my image. Okay, In order to have these box and the button in a row, as a column, I will put them inside a container called column. So I select all of them, the whole code starting from box to the end of button, and then press Alt and Enter, surround with widget, and surround with column. This creates a column, and in order to give the column the whole space available on our screen, I'm gonna use a modifier modifier.fill max size, and also I give it a background color dot, I need to specify a color. You can access colors using color dot and then gray, for example. Since I called fill max size for the column, I remove it from the box, and instead for the box I'm gonna use background color dot red, for example. Okay, let's also give let's see the preview for this for now by building it, but we will not see any preview yet because we haven't used any preview annotation. In order to have the preview, I need to add @preview annotation to my composable. I'm gonna get rid of the default code added by Android Studio for now, because we are creating our own code. There we go. And also empty the code inside set content, because we will set our own content. Refresh, please. Okay, to see the full preview, you click this button, zoom to fit screen, and currently it's not very beautiful. I'm gonna put my column inside the screen. Let's do this. I'm gonna put these two UI pieces, the button and the image, inside the screen in a central way. So I use a parameter from the column composable called vertical arrangement. Vertical arrangement. Vertical arrangement. And for vertical arrangement, we need to add a value. We need to pass a value that is matching arrangement.top. Arrangement, or from the same family, arrangement.center. And then we have horizontal alignment. I imported arrangement, and then we have horizontal alignment to align the views horizontally in the center. It has to be matching alignment.start, so I'm gonna use alignment. Its type is alignment.horizontal, so I type alignment center horizontally. Okay, now let's see the result by refreshing the preview. Nice, that's cool. And the next thing I want to do is adding a spacer between the button that I have and the image. To do that, in the column that I have, I add a spacer, import the spacer, which is from the foundation component of Jetpack Compose, and then a modifier to specify its height, modifier.height, and for height I give it 8 depth, for example. Refresh. Okay, now we have a space here. Nice. Let's have a bigger size for our preview pane. Also zoom in. Okay. There's a lot of things that we can do actually. For our image, for example, I can use a modifier to clip the image. I do that by adding the modifier parameter modifier dot clip. This allows me to clip the corners of the image. There are several ways to use it by passing different shapes. I'm gonna use a rounded corner shape. Rounded corner shape. The rounded corner shape, the easiest way to use it is to pass in the size of the corners. So I pass in 10.dip. This gives it a round corner, and also for our box, we can also specify that for the box or for the image. Doesn't make much difference. I'm gonna add a padding so that you can see the background, that is the red background that I have given to the box. A padding of 16 depth for the box. And I can also give a border to my image. Let's import border. First the border size, 2.dip, and then the color.black. You see that one of the nice things about modifiers is that you can chain them. Okay, there we go. I hope that this gives you a nice idea of how composables can be cool and how you can design them quickly, how you can design the UI of your application quickly. Now, if we want to have this UI in the final application that we have on the phone, all we have to do is to call it in our set content. So I call my box here, and then I run the application. Currently I don't have any virtual device created here, so I cannot run it and show it to you, but you can do it yourself by just putting your composable functions call inside set content, call them here, and it will create the final UI of your application in the installed application, and you can see and test your UI on your real device or your virtual device. I hope that you like this tutorial. All right, that's it for ZomCast 27 this week. I hope that you liked it. Please, if you liked this episode of ZomCast, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next episode.